All right, welcome back to the BTF 2021 CX Summit. I hope you're having an awesome time so far. Our next speaker is Matthieu Soule. He is the head of Innovation Lab at BNP Paribas Group. Please join me in welcoming Matthieu to our virtual stage.
Please welcome Matthieu Soule, head of BNP Paribas C.Lab Americas, to the virtual stage.
Thank you for inviting me. So I'm glad to be there. Today I will share with you some of the change we are seeing in the fintech and climate change topic, and more generally how ESG is driving, in fact, a lot of initiatives for BNP Paribas. Maybe before starting to jump into the conversation, just a quick note about myself. So I'm leading the Innovation Lab for BNP Paribas Group in San Francisco. I've been working for the bank for the last 13 years. Half of it was based in Paris, in charge of different topics around innovation and perspective. And since 2015, working back at the San Francisco office to identify new fintech, new insurtechs, new business models in the US. And also since 2 or 3 years, in fact, spending a lot of time around how basically the bank can drive change for clients, either from the consumer perspective, but also for corporate perspective. And we have seen a tremendous amount of, I would say, acceleration in the industry in the last 18 months. So it's very encouraging. So what I will share with you today is a few things and some of the journeys that we have been going through for BNP Paribas. And I hope I would say it will be inspirational or something useful for you. So very quickly on the way we are seeing the market and how it's moving. So as a little context, BNP Paribas accelerated is I would say interest for the topics around ESG and climate, especially after the COP21. So as you probably know, the COP21 was in Paris. BNP was one of the business to sign the Paris Agreement. And following that, in fact, the bank realized, being one of the largest banks in Europe, that we had some responsibilities and I would say almost duties to do something about it. And so we very pushed a lot, in fact, to how to not just do CSR report and extra financial reports from regulatory reasons, but also how sustainability and ESG could be driving change for clients on a day-to-day basis. So on my side, from my small piece of the full puzzle on that, so we did this first, in fact, scouting and mapping, in fact, a few years ago to identify in the market what were some best practices coming also from the fintech space or startups. It could be from the investment perspective, could be in the payment or leasing areas, could be also around crypto or the lending space. But really the idea to identify what was already existing on the market and either could be inspirational or potentially people we could work with. And on the second image, you can see it was just a sign. It was at Money 2020 2 years ago. Almost. It was the first time at one of the largest fintech conference out there. We were discussing climate change and financial services. On stage, I was with one think tank and Andre Czerny from Aspiration Bank, which historically have been one of the model in the US for consumer neobanks regarding sustainability. But just to show that it's still a new market or emerging field, but growing very quickly. And I can share with you, especially in Europe, it's something that we are noticing in each market. So why I say that, how basically we can take a few examples and illustration to tell you what we are doing and how we are thinking about to do that with clients. So one of the first, one of the few realizations BNP Paribas have been doing, focusing this time on the consumer banking. So in France, BNP is one of the top 5 banks regarding consumer banking. We have around like 8 to 9 million consumer clients. So we partnered with a fintech startup that is called Greenly. What we are doing with the startups and what is the kind of feature for clients, we have something called in French Mon empreinte carbone, which means my carbon footprints. So as you can see on the bottom of the slide, first thing it is doing is measuring your carbon footprints based on your spending. Second thing is you have also like day-to-day tips to change your behaviors and reduce your carbon footprint. And last and foremost, you have the options to do carbon offsetting. And the carbon offsetting is done by one of the spin-off and subsidiary of BNP Paribas called Climate. So the idea from a client perspective and consumers, and that's the way we are seeing a bank or financial services players playing a key role in changing, in fact, and helping clients to move towards ESG and sustainability, is first kind of awareness. What is my impact on my day-to-day basis, what I'm spending, what I'm doing. Second thing, not just telling them like that's the way you're acting, but how we could drive change. So giving them practical advice in terms of mobility, changing for them home, the way their energy producers, some of their appliances, etc. So very like practical stuff at the consumer level, and trying to drive this change. And at the end also is compensating or mitigating, in fact, their carbon impact with carbon offsetting. So that was developed in France for the French retail banking with Greenly, and that was live last summer, and we have pretty good results, in fact, with client appetite, and we're the first one to do that in France. On a similar note and a similar model, we did a larger, I would say, partnership in the USA with 1% for the Planet. So in the US, Bank of the West is a subsidiary of BNP Paribas Group. We have a few million clients. The idea of this partnership was to develop a new banking offer, which was a checking account, in fact, and a mechanism to give back to the planet. So that's why the partnership with 1% for the Planet. The idea of the partnership is very simple. Any kind of benefits from the product itself will be given back to 1% for the Planet. And when we say 1% for the Planet, is for different environmental projects. It could be in the Arctic, it could be around the forest topic, etc. So that's giving back to the NGOs and the projects that are helping. That's one part. And within the product, there is two components. There is obviously a checking account, but linked with a checking account, you have a debit card, which is based on renewable not renewable, sorry, recycled materials on that. And you can see on the right part some screenshots. It's also having the same kind of mechanism for identifying your carbon footprint. So based on the consumer spending and the card, you can see, in fact, what is your impact, giving them insights. And this part of the activity was also done with the startups, which is called Doconomy, which is a Swedish startup. So we imported, if you would like, the Swedish startup in the US. It was the first time they were working with partners in the US, and it was also linked with MasterCard as global partners. But that's where the bank, in fact, is looking toward, on the consumer banking end. So shifting a little now, I show you like two things that are live for both France and the US, and we're looking to expand some of that in other countries in Europe. One topic that I've been, I think, keys in the banking world regarding ESG and how banks can play a role into that. There is a massive shift of assets right now regarding in Europe, but also in the US, regarding how investors are looking at this space, and they want to put more and more money into funds and basically companies or different asset classes that are taking more care about ESG. And ESG reporting is now something that is very entire, I would say, in the European regulations for the coming years, and the US is following this lead. So why I will specifically talk about this company. So following this study we did a few years ago, we identified that one of the missing pieces we had in the US for wealth management clients was if a client wanted to invest according to their values, and values could be linked to the environment, but it could be also about LGBT rights, it could be around ethical supply chain, it could be also about supporting refugees. There was not practical solution for clients. It was something we could do for large family offices, developing like a tailor-made, I would say, investment strategy, but not in a very simple way. And so we identified this great company and startup called OpenInvest. So OpenInvest is a startup based in the Bay Area, that is helping, basically asking you a few questions about what you want to see as a change in the world on that. And based on that, they are proposing an customized indexed portfolio of assets. That's the left part. And that's what we embedded, I would say, within our wealth management banking offer. So it was live late 2019 on that, and very coming up in 2020 in the US. So that's one part of what OpenInvest is doing. Just to let you know, for the one interesting too, OpenInvest is doing that. Other companies either in the US or Europe are also looking at that. You have also more and more tools and softwares to help you analyze, in fact, what you have in your portfolio. So it's working. It could work basically for both consumers and institutional investors. For example, in the case of OpenInvest, you can see that they are analyzing your portfolio of investment and telling you within your portfolio what are the good companies, some of the laggards ones, regarding some specific indicators that you care about. And the idea is really to help clients to, I would say, shift or change, in fact, their portfolio mix according to their values. And everything, in fact, in the ESG space is very trying to identify a best way, in fact, to first assess basically the quality of assets, and what large companies are doing, but also different institutions. And secondly, how practically, from a client perspective, we can help drive change. One thing, so just to share, in fact, on that, so it was the journey we had between Bank of the West and OpenInvest. You can see on the left, it was when we released it, the way it was analyzed by some of the media. It was also the opening session for one of the Wealth Tech conference late December. So it was pretty early, and we are glad to make it a first in the US too. But it's showing, in fact, we are just at the starting point of the journey, and especially in the US, it will be something that will be becoming more massive. One last quick comment on that. So when I say that we focus a little on the left part, I would say, regarding what we were doing in daily banking and some of the offsetting one, we discussed a little on the investment side, also on the top hand. As you can see, and it just global mapping is not specifically, I would say, what BNP Paribas is doing, but you can see there is many different ways the banks and financial services players could act, and the logos, in fact, are representing some startups or practices on the market on that. Personally speaking, there is 2 or 3 I like to highlight in this slide. On the top right side, there is a company called Patch that is doing offsetting as a service. So they are plugging in either for banks that are doing this kind of credit card program and with carbon footprint, but also with merchants that want at the point of sale to do carbon offsetting. So through API, Patch is able to suggest, in fact, different offsetting projects. So it could be different countries, different type of technologies, I would say, from a natural base offsetting with forest, etc., or like more technology-driven ones. That's one example. The other one I wanted to mention, the bottom right parts too. It's 2 companies I will mention. One is called Plan A Earth. It's a startup based out of Germany. What they are doing is a small business, or corporate software accounting for ESG. So they are very looking at carbon footprint for companies and helping the companies in a B2B environment to analyze and reduce at the end some of their carbon footprint. And one other which you should check if you're interested in this space is a company based out of Montreal, in fact, in Canada, called Novisto. They just raised a few $1 million a couple of days ago, and they are helping both large companies but also banks to be able to better do ESG reporting for a lot of the CSR team it's always complex to have more and more data to ingest, more and more reporting to do for different regulatory bodies, also sometimes for investors. And Novisto is kind of creating this software platform basically to simplify it, but also to be able to do analysis, peer comparison, etc. So very leading the way for me in the kind of ESG software reporting. What I forgot to mention for Plan A2 is more and more banks, and that's the case in Europe or in the US, have regulatory constraint, or not constraint, but I would say incentive more and more to do better reporting on the way their activities are impacting the planet. So we're just saying regarding the banks today have to do more and more reporting around the ESG for regulatory reasons. And so you have a few startups and software players entering the space. And what is very, I think, interesting and fascinating is the banks have a role to play in that. But what we are looking into, and that's something that is more exploratory at this stage, the bank also could be a very good facilitators of accelerators of change for clients. Let me take you an example. Today, for example, in France, the bank is proposing, in fact, a platform for consumer clients or corporate clients if they want to do building retrofits, if they want to reduce their energy spending. We are suggesting to them different startups or solutions to be able to do energy diagnosis, but also how to reduce, in fact, their footprint. And why the bank is looking at that is for three things. First, basically, it's a very good affiliation model to drive more sales. So what we are doing is telling to a client, for example, a large industrial asset manager, clients, that they could reduce their energy spending on a factory, for example, by a few hundreds of thousands or millions. So we are using this software to do the diagnosis. After, if the clients wants to invest into the factory to install different HVAC system, different, in fact, hardware or software solutions, we can finance it. So it's kind of a green loans on that. And finally, what is the end game for everyone? The client is happy because he's reducing his energy spend. He's also reducing the carbon footprint. The bank is happy because we are doing a better relationship with the client, offering them loans too, but also decreasing, in fact, this Scope 3 emission, because if the client is having less carbon emissions, the banks also has a positive impact on that. So we are starting to see this kind of interesting mechanism where the banks not only provide the core, I would say, products or financial services, which at the end of the day are like loans, payments, bonds, or different mechanism, but really trying to get, I would say, positive effect on the client side, driving the conversation to tell them what you're trying to achieve to reduce your carbon footprints. And we started with carbon because historically we're very focusing on climate, but tomorrow you could think it could be water, it could be different topic of interest. And the bank, in fact, is a very good enabler of that, because we are doing this kind of bonus malus mechanism in different areas. So we are basically subsidizing clients to act in the right direction. So it was all for my presentation today. So happy to answer any question. You, I guess you can contact me on my email or on Twitter. And thank you for your time.
Wow, thank you so much, Matthieu. Thank you for sharing these insights with us. I know this virtual crowd is going wild with applause. All right, for the audience, it's time for you to make your way to your next session. Along the way, make sure you accept your connection request and take some time to check out our amazing exhibits. Thanks so much, and we'll see you around.